And we are live here to chat about tonight's episode of Arrow entitled The Devil's Greatest Trick. This is season 6, episode 13. This aired on February 8th. And it's the last episode that we're going to have in a while before Arrow goes on hiatus for a couple weeks during, for whatever reason, I assume because of Olympics and Valentine's Day. I don't know. Why do American televisions go on hiatus? But we are here to chat about it live. I'm pretty excited to chat about it. And to give you sort of a brief overview of what the episode was about, this was kind of the end of Caden James's arc, in a way, insofar as he died at the end. Spoilers. I assume you wouldn't watch this without watching the episode. And then we kind of get to see who was sort of the puppet master controlling Caden James all along. And it was Dragon. Now, I've been pretty vocal, I guess, and insofar as you can be vocal about a character that you forget about all the time, about how forgettable I find Dragon to be. So that was, I mean, it wasn't necessarily an unexpected twist because at that point we had narrowed it down to 50-50 and it was either going to be a villain that I often am forgetting about or a villain that I actively don't like. So like, whatever, but it's Dragon's pulling the strings, and then we have to sort of speculate about who else is working with him. There seem to be some flashbacks that might indicate is Elena sort of working with them. I keep hearing different ways that we're supposed to be pronouncing her name. It's just a tough name to pronounce. I don't know. So is she supposed to be working with them? We got to see her working with original Team Arrow this time, so we have a little bit to speculate about there. There's a lot to speculate about whether Black Siren is supposed to be getting a redemption arc. She doesn't seem to want one. Quentin might be going crazy. OTA, new team, I don't even want to call them new Team Arrow, the Timeout Trio, the Outsiders, whatever they're calling themselves, they're fighting. In the preview for next week, it looks like they might be like actually fighting each other. So there's a lot going on. Let's get into how we start this off with our rating on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 being you hated it and you want your like time back, and 5 being like best episode of Arrow ever. What did you guys think? I'm looking in the chat. Let's see. Stormy says 6.5 out of 10. Carrie says, man, I have such a frowny face about this episode. Ooh, so we've got some low ratings so far. I've got to say, I think I'm with you guys on this one. This was not, now last week's I think was a little worse. Maybe. Bruna says a 2 out of 5. Ooh, okay, maybe last week's wasn't worse. Carrie says a 5 out of 10. Yeah. See, I think the problem with this episode really was that this was the villains episode. You know, we got to see flashbacks of the villains, or in this case, Caden, who previously had sort of been our main villain. We got to see a lot of very villain heavy scenes. We got to see the villains talk to each other, potentially betray each other, face off against each other. So there was a lot riding on, are these good villains? Because we kind of know, I mean, I won't speak for you guys, but correct me if you feel differently. If we saw OTA maybe facing off against New Team Arrow, or, you know, some of our main characters sort of facing off against, you know, some sort of interpersonal problem, like Oliver's struggle with William, or, you know, this person thinks we shouldn't kill and this person thinks we should kill, and maybe it's a bit of a weak story, we're still kind of willing to watch it, or at least I am, because I'm really engaged in these characters. And I think where this episode sort of felt weak for me is that I wasn't really sure how engaged we were with these villains. Let's jump into the chat to see what you guys think. Stormy says, Felicity doesn't have her villain. I could see that being Elena. I kind of had thought that Felicity's villain was going to be Caden, right? Because he's sort of a hacker type of person. He's dead, so I guess not. Stormy also goes on to say, Dragon is such a bore. I think Elena might be the smarts behind him. Yeah, I would love that, just because Elena is a way more interesting character than Dragon. Dragon is so boring, you guys. Like, I can't even tell you how forgettable he is. It's not even like, I want to say he's like bargain brand Prometheus, but like, Prometheus, sweetie, I'm so sorry that I would even say that about you. Like, He's I don't does anybody here like Dragon? I haven't seen. He's just forgettable, but maybe he'll bubble up to the surface the way Prometheus did. I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. Going back in the chat, aside from Anatoly, the villains are lame as hell. Yeah, Anatoly is kind of, they really did set it up to be the case where all the villains, I guess except for Dragon, because we don't really know much about him, but all the villains could kind of go good or bad, right? So we have, Black Siren, who's like this a violent sociopath, kills everybody good, hates everybody, like this true villain. She doesn't really have a soft side necessarily, but somebody else thinks that she's good. Then we had Vince, who ended up being sort of a double agent or whatever, but also kind of bad, whatever. I mean, like, he's good, but like, he's not a great guy. Whatever. He's dead too. Caden, bad guy, but we see him sort of having a soft spot with his son. He kind of got into this because of misinformation. He was always kind of a bad guy, hacktivist, whatever, but he got into this because somebody killed his son and he was told it was Oliver, right? So and Anatoly as well used to be like Oliver's best friend / brother, and then through a sequence of events turned against him, but he still sort of has a soft spot for Oliver. So all of them except Dragon, who nobody cares about. Bruna in the chat, OMG, who is Dragon? Me. Big mood. Like I don't know, who is Dragon? Anyways, all of the villains sort of had this sort of soft spot, right? They had this sort of not a weakness per se, but they had something that would allow you to either feel for them or feel for those who feel for them, right? But when it came down to tonight's episode and they were all interacting with each other, it was difficult to feel for them in that context. And it also felt like a lot of the scenes fell flat in delivering us a goal for them. Like, I'm going to kill the whole city unless you get all three of these people together. And it's like, that kind of feels just like a plot point of convenience, because Caden specifically knew where all of the three of them were and could probably much more easily track them than OTA. And it was just like a force where I don't know. Let me see what you guys are thinking. So Stormy was explaining Dragon's the one who killed Caden. Stormy says Lance needs a straitjacket. He's going crazy. I tweeted tonight and it's like, this is harsh, but because I really did genuinely love the character of Quentin Lance. I would almost rather see Quentin die than continue having to sort of play this Boo-Boo the Fool character. Like, this is so dumb. Everybody on the show has come into contact with the fact that there's Earth 2 versions of themselves, that there's unlimited Earths. So there's going to be some versions, like there's going to be other people on other Earths that visually look the same or may have like the carbon copy of their genetic makeup, but are completely different people who've lived completely different lives, right? For example, Quentin knows that his version of himself in the crossover that we saw on Earth X is like some terrible Nazi person who's like running concentration camps. Not the same person, not a redeemable character, not somebody we need to be friends with. So the fact that he's understanding that, but not understanding this about Black Siren, just really feels like a plot point of convenience, and it feels like they don't have something better to write for him. And if that's truly the case, and that's where their creative limitations with this character lie, I really do feel like maybe he's got to go. Okay, we jump back into what you guys are saying. Sorry, I went off on that. Carrie says, I hope that Dragon has been underwhelming so far simply because he was trying to fool Caden into a false sense of security. I do hope he can come on strong and be dynamic. And that's an optimistic way to look at it. I can get behind that. Stormy says, so what that Black Siren hesitated, Lance? She still killed Vince. Siren has done everything Chase and James have told her to do. Yeah, that hesitated thing was like a little weird for me. It's like, oh, you hesitated before you killed whatever. And it's like, but she still did it though. Like, if somebody hesitates before they like go off and like shoot up a mall somewhere, like they still did it. The fact that they like sat in their car for a minute first doesn't like make it any better. That's not how like morality works. That was so bizarre to me. And it was bizarre that they would impose that like they would write that kind of morality for Quentin, because he's never been that way before. Bruna says, I know, I meant to say that he's for what I got what you were saying, Bruna. I understood the sarcasm. Fatima says, geez, this episode sucks. Siren kills the show. Her fight scenes are terrible. Get rid of Quentin or hospitalize him. Yeah, I mean, like, tough love, but like, I'm with you. See, the thing with Siren, I love a good lady villain. I love a good lady villain. There's a reason why I'm very open to the idea of even Elena being a villain, because I love that idea. I love the idea of her being good, even better. I think Felicity needs a friend. I think we need better people on OTA than what the newbies were doing for them. So like, I'm fine. But I love this idea of like, we can have villains that are female that are just bad. They're not avenging some scorned lover. They're not on the path to redemption. They're not just waiting for the right guy to fall in love with so they can be good again or whatever. You know, it's none of this taming their shrew stuff. They're just bad. I love that. They're ruining that for Siren with every single step of the way. They've tried to sort of hint at like there could be a redemption, but she continues to be a sociopath. Like she's still bad, but they keep hinting at this redemption. It's like, give it something else. I think she was better as a minion anyways. I don't think like, what's a nice way to say this? I don't think when they give her like a lot of emoting and lines, it comes across quite as well. I think it comes across better when it's just like very straightforward. She's the muscle, right? Because that also sort of subverts the trope. If there's like this like brainy guy or whatever, and the muscle is like the girl behind him who has like powers, like that's cool. I'll buy that. When she starts getting involved in like the storyline, that starts to get a little dicey on all counts. But I would be okay with it if they kept her bad. Like this is just a sociopath. If they want to redeem a female villain, let's start with Huntress, by the way. Like there's so many better okay, sorry, I'll get back to the chat. Okay. Bruno says Lance deserved better. Yeah, he does. Bring back Donna. Like, that made him happy and, like, relatively sane. Brian Perez says, I feel like they don't know what to do with Quentin, too. Maybe he'll be the captain again by the end of the season. Yeah, they clearly don't seem to know what to do with Quentin, which is unfortunate because, Paul Blackthorne is a fantastic actor. You know, like, this is no shade against him. He's doing absolutely fantastic job with this show. I'm sure he's doing the best he can with the writing he's been given. It's just the storyline they're giving him right now is very repetitive. We've seen him be kind of like emo about his daughters way too many times. Like Sarah's still alive, first of all, so like, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go visit her or something. Like it's just, yeah. Okay, Stormy says, can Wild Dog stop having the same line about this doesn't mean we're a team every episode? Yeah, Wild Dog. See, he was awful this episode, and then somehow in the promo he ended up managing to be more awful even just in the promo than he was in this whole episode overall. But I think one of the reasons why like he didn't really get to me too much in this episode is because they made him sort of shut up and fight for a while. Carrie says, how crazy are they writing William? Last episode, he saw Ollie in the field and he was fine. This week, he gets hella scared, pulls a Carl from The Walking Dead. Stupid move. That's exactly what I was thinking. I literally like, because I put in my time with The Walking Dead and watching that train wreck. So I was literally like, this is a miniature Carl. This is Carl all over again. Like, stay here. You're going to get in trouble if you like don't stay here. Like someone will try to kill you. Guess who like walks into the scene of the fight? Like that's why I was sort of like, oh, I feel bad for William that he's having to witness all this like gruesome, scarring, awful stuff. But then I'm like, the tort brought it on himself. Like he was told and he was old enough to know better. Like whatever. Okay. Bruno says I can't stand Renee anymore. Renee, okay, so Renee's not a hero. If you still think Renee's a hero, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're wrong. If the writers think he's a hero, they're also wrong. Secondly, Renee is not just like somewhere between a hero and a villain. He's not just like a flawed hero. He's not, because like all of the heroes on Arrow are flawed. This is a, you know, I'm not going to say it's like a gritty, realistic show, but in the grand scheme of the Arrowverse, it's one of the more gritty, realistic shows-ish, maybe. And the heroes on here are flawed. You know, they struggle with whether or not they should kill, or they struggle with, you know, what decisions to make. And they are. Renee goes beyond that. Because Renee is not just a flawed hero, a civilian aspiring to be a hero. He falls under the archetype, and I think I was talking to somebody in the comments of my last after show about this. He falls under the archetype of a foil. He is the foil for the hero. A foil can be similar to a villain in that they are opposing the hero. In this case, Renee is opposing literally everybody good on the show. He frequently opposes the like somewhat heroic members of, you know, the Timeout Trio, New Team Arrow. He's opposed to all the good people. but he's not a villain in that he doesn't have a specific villainy goal. He's not out to destroy the city. He's just going to stop the hero from being able to save the city. He's not out to destroy, you know, Oliver's life. He'll just stop Oliver from being able to like protect his family or build a case to support this or whatever. He's the foil for all of these heroes. Another good example sort of how he behaves with Felicity. He's not going to stop her from like he's not trying to like literally destroy Felicity, but he will kind of stop her from being able to do what she needs to do, get the information she needs. He'll withhold information, you know, that sort of stuff. And while occasionally any of the characters can kind of do this, Renee does this consistently. Now, if this is intentional and that's who he's supposed to be, fine, fantastic. Love it. Play with these cool, you know, character archetypes. That's fantastic. If they're like thinking he's just like a cool, flawed hero, like, no, sit down, write your essay again, turn it in, put it in MLA format. Okay, next. Stormy says Wild Dog is thinking he could take on Oliver in a fight. That man's delusional. Yeah, he is. Sorry. I'm not even an Oliver like stan or anything, but really? I think there was foreshadowing of William being a hero in the future. Right now he needs to stay with Felicity where he was safe. Yeah, the whole thing with like he was like examining the arrow and then Thea kind of tries to take it from him. That was really cute. The faster they age him up and train him, the better, in my opinion. Brian Press says, I want to see how fast OTA takes down the newbies. Yeah, they kind of deserve to get their ass kicked, don't they? Like they've earned a good ass kicking. This whole like new Team Arrow thing. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not. I don't think this is unpopular. But a team has to have a leader, right? Like there has to be like a democratic leader, you know, like not like a fascist leader of a team, but you need a democratic leader who everybody signs onto the team knowing that this is the leader and they're okay with it. Otherwise, they can leave the team. That leader has final say in all or most of the choices unless they delegate it out to somebody else and they pay the consequences for those actions. If the team goes down, Oliver goes down. He's the first to go down, right? That's how leadership works. That's how teams work. This whole sort of thing, this whole sort of neo non-leader team that new Team Arrow has is not really a team. They have no leader. They don't know how to follow a leader, and none of them know how to lead. And a lot of times they don't even like each other. So I kind of even hesitate to call them a team. Thus the Timeout Trio name. Carrie says, in other words, Renee is a pothole or a speed bump on the hero highway. That's a fantastic way to put it. Fatima says, I think they were going with another story for Caden, but the writers listened to the haters and switched direction. Maybe, just like they are listening to Redemption Troop and now they're pushing this craziness. I don't know. I don't know how much the writers do or do not listen to. That's a lie. I do know that the writers listen to a lot of what people have to say. Or that it'll affect the overall writing choices. But when it comes to the villains this season, I think a lot of them were on such shaky grounds. If you go back and think of the way that Vigilante was introduced, how he was introduced as one thing, being, you know, embodied by one person and one personality, and then they kind of, to switch gears, they introduced him as somebody else, and he had one personality, and then the next week he had to be written different for plot purposes, and it was just so back and forth, and kind of inconsistent and shaky, and, you know, then they kind of just kill him off to set Dinah on a path that she was already on because she was already avenging his death. He didn't need to die in front of her again. There's sort of these shaky steps that they've taken with the villains where it feels like they've had to kind of jump through these hoops in order to keep their heroes' journeys on track. The heroes that remain, OTA and the members of New Team Arrow that you would consider heroes. They've had to kind of put these sort of plot holes and constant loops on the villains' storylines in order to keep the heroes on track, that the heroes are the weakest link. And so whenever we get something that feels out of place for a hero or that feels out of place for a villain or feels inconsistent with the villain's character development, feels inconsistent with the villain's goals, feels overall full of plot holes, it's probably just a plot of convenience in order to keep all of the heroes' journeys on track. Because to be fair, we have at least, you know, 3 to 6 heroes that are having to go through a journey this season. So they had to generate a bunch of villains for them, and then they have to get these villains to act in certain ways in order to, you know, move the heroes certain ways. And they have to sort of prioritize the heroes' journeys over the consistency in the villains' journeys because the villains are going to die. I know I sound like a writer's apologist, but like, yeah. Okay. Stormy says New Team Arrow doesn't have a leader. They just do whatever they want behind each other's backs. True. Winter's Beauty, what a lovely screen name, says William is reminding me a little bit of early Roy, where he's doing a lot of stupid things. It would be interesting to see William become sort of a new Roy. We do know Roy is coming back in a couple episodes. Stormy says, I wonder if Elena's name is on the list of people Kaden gave to Oliver. Possibly. That's a good question. Brian says, I feel like Curtis is just tagging along because he's peer pressured. Curtis does feel very peer pressured. That is an excellent point, Brian. In fact, the other two left before Curtis did when there was that big team breakup. And then Curtis was just sort of like, I don't like you tracking me. I'm going to go too. Bye. Which doesn't even make any sense because he actively tracked plenty of them against their wishes without their consent, and they were chill with it because that's what you got to do to be able to like stay safe, and he should know better. Winter's Beauty says, I think Curtis would go back now to the team and Renee would be a lone wolf, but they feel the need to back Dinah even if they don't agree with her, sort of like Felicity and Dig with Oliver. That's a good point, and that's also a point that sort of sets this new trio up for Dinah to kind of be the leader, which I'm okay with. Asterisk, except for I don't like some of her interactions with Oliver in this episode. I feel like that's the weakest interaction. When she's referencing, okay, so first of all, her friendship with Diggle, strong. They put tons of time and effort into it, so that's there, whether, you know, anybody likes it or not. Dinah and Diggle are believably friends, comrades, buddies in arms, whatever. Dinah and Felicity have backed each other's strategies quite a bit. At one point, Felicity even backed Dinah as the sort of temporary, just for a week leader of Team Arrow when they were all still together, when they needed somebody to lead a mission. And then last week or the week before, Dinah told the like new trio that she needs them to consistently continue to work with Felicity. So Dinah and Felicity and Dinah and Diggle, that's fine. But Dinah and Oliver, I get that they want them to butt heads. I don't like the way that they're doing it. It feels similar in this should go without saying that this is in a bad way, but in a bad way, it feels way too similar to the way Laurel and Oliver used to butt heads. And I get it. Like, I get it before you all say it. I know it's because that's the Black Canary and Green Arrow dynamic. It sucked when it was Oliver and Laurel, and it's not so great with Oliver and Dinah either. And I want to like this character, so I wish they didn't write her that way, and or just don't have her interact with him. Like, keep it to where like this Black Canary's sort of Green Arrow is Diggle. Okay, moving on from that. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. I'm open to disagreements. Carrie says, also, where did Lance take Siren to get that gut wound taken care of? Probably would have been fatal. Hospital immediately recognized her as dead AF Laurel, right? Yeah, I mean, the team has that one nurse that they always go to who keeps everything on the DL. Amanda says, at least now the season will flow. No filler episodes, please. Good point. Like, we are getting to the point where they'll probably slow the filler episodes. Fatima says it's too much of a coincidence, almost like some of the things mentioned in the redemption arc were taken from the hashtag. Maybe. Rengoku says Renee, of all people, shouldn't be complaining. Number one, he was the traitor. Yes. And number two, Oliver's the one that inspired him. Yes. And number three, being in the face of death is part of the job. It's not Ollie's fault. Rengoku is coming in with the truth tea. That is absolutely right. Amanda says, and they added stairs to the bunker for William to silently escape. Where were those stairs when Oliver and Felicity were trapped in 5x20? Good point. That said, I love that there weren't stairs then, because that whole like elevator shaft climb, that was kind of cute. That was like the best moment in that episode. Amanda says, Winter's Beauty, I thought about the garage door to that comment. Yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot going on in this episode. I won't keep you guys too much longer because I know it's already been, let me see, 24 minutes. We're already overtime. So, we're going on hiatus, guys. I think it's going to be until March something or other, until we get another episode. It might be the end. Yeah, I think it's March 1st. We got 2 whole weeks. But we're going to make it through March 1st in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I guess. We'll skip 2 weeks and then we'll be back March 1st with another episode. I'll be here, same time, same place to talk about it. I've kind of been doing this thing now where it's like every other week I'll have someone on. Like last week I had a guest, the week before I didn't have a guest. I kind of like that we get the chance to, like, when I don't have somebody on, I can like read a lot of your comments more, and it's more like, it feels more like a conversation with you guys. But then I also like having a guest because then I can have a conversation with them about it. So just let me know if you guys prefer one way or the other. Also, if you are watching this after the fact, you can comment below as well. And I always reply to comments on the videos as well. If you're watching after the fact, and if you want to chat with me more about Arrow or any of these other DC shows or anything else that you want to talk about, you can find me on Twitter at Cammy and Ray. Also, do the other sites I'm on there too. It was good to talk to you guys. Carrie says, I always dig this. I always dig it too. Rengoku says, thank you. No, thank you, Rengoku. I loved your comments. Amanda says, it is March 1st. Thank you for the confirmation. And I will see you guys in 3 weeks. Oh my goodness. Have a good February. Bye.